New Jersey has become the 14th state to allow same-sex couples to marry, and 11 more may soon adopt it as well. Is it time for gay marriage to be legal everywhere in the USA? Or do you believe it's wrong no matter what the law says? It's your call on same-sex marriage, and our debate begins right now. It is being considered another victory for gay rights advocates. Another state has legalized marriage between same-sex couples, bringing the total to 14 who recognize it. The latest state to embrace gay marriage is New Jersey, and many see that as a sign that it will soon be legal in most states. But legal is one thing, accepted is another. Hello, everyone. It's good to have you with us. I'm Lynn Doyle. I find this is one of those hot-button topics like abortion or gun control. Gay marriage stirs up quite a bit of emotion and certainly incites debate, and that's exactly what we have for you this hour. Mark Siegel of the Philadelphia Gay News supports gay marriage and says it should be legally recognized throughout the United States, but Gregory Quinlan of New Jersey Family First is against it because he says marriage is between a man and a woman. Marriage is not designed for adults, it's designed for children, and kids deserve a mommy and a daddy. We're going to hear from them in just a moment. And then later in the show, we're going to meet James and Larry, who were among the first to marry under the new law, to find out why it was so important to them to be able to marry. First, though, as always, we invite you to join our discussion with your questions and comments. So my very first question to you, the most obvious one, do you oppose or support gay marriage? And I'd like to know why or why not. As always, if you want to join in, you can email me directly. I'm at lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So let's get the debate started, gentlemen. Wonderful to see both of you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Good to have you back, Mark. Let's start with you. Is this considered a major victory for gay rights advocates across the country that yet another state has legalized same-sex marriage?
Absolutely. With New Jersey, approximately 1/3 of Americans now in their states can legally marry, whether it be anywhere in New England, the entire New England, or whether it be on the West Coast. And with New Jersey, that's 14 states plus District of Columbia. What amazes me and fascinates me at this point, from someone who's watched this for 44 years, is the fact that once it was announced in New Jersey, basically case over. Every single independent polling in New Jersey, no matter who it was being done by, showed that a overwhelming majority of New Jersey residents support this measure.
Greg, from your perspective as someone who is opposed to same-sex marriage, do you see the growing numbers as cause for concern, or do you think that it's being approved in more progressive states?
It's definitely being approved in more progressive states, and it's definitely being approved not by the people, but by either the legislature imposing it or the courts imposing it upon the people. And when it comes to the polling, it's all about how you ask the question. When we, in our polling that we've done at the New Jersey Family Policy Council, New Jersey Family First, the polling that we've seen shows that people, when they understand what civil unions are and that it's up to the federal government to offer the benefits, then they say that marriage should remain between a man and a woman, and that the other construct, civil unions, is all that is needed or necessary.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
Can I correct something, a little fact? In the last election, 4 states voted on gay marriage, and we won all 4 of them. So, no, it's not just being done by the courts, it's being done by the people. Every poll nationwide...
Minnesota was a different situation.
Let me finish, please. Every poll nationwide shows that marriage equality is supported by a majority of the population.
Again, that depends on the poll and how the question is asked.
Every independent poll, whether it be Gallup, Rasmussen, PRR, doesn't matter which poll. Quinnipiac.
Well, I don't trust Quinnipiac at all.
Well, I'm saying every independent poll, no matter which one it is.
We could argue the merits of polling throughout the entire show, but I'd rather get to the actual issue of why you are opposed to gay marriage and what your organization's main concern would be.
Well, there's several concerns, and right now in New Jersey there's absolute fear among pastors, among ministers, because this imposed ruling from a Superior Court judge does not give us any protections for the churches or houses of worship who believe that marriage should be between one man and one woman. For the sociologists and other persons and Christian business owners.
What protections?
That's it. There are no protections.
What protections do you need?
We need protections to say that we don't have to do business with someone that we don't agree with. For example, if you're a baker, if you're a florist, and you don't want to support or give advocacy to a homosexual marriage, then you shouldn't be forced to do that.
So that same baker should also, if he doesn't want to, give rights, do business with
we don't
black
give
people?
rights.
With black people?
Black is innate. Homosexuality is not. No one's born a homosexual.
We would disagree. Well, if they don't want to do it with Jews.
Again, that's a religious protection under the First Amendment. There is no protection for who you have sex with.
Well,
this is what we've done. This is what we've done here in the United States. What's happening is that we are codifying somebody's sexual choice. And that's all it is, a sexual choice.
What I wish is
no
that
one's
you would
born
give
a homosexual.
correct information.
Even the American Psychiatric
Association. It was the New Jersey
Association.
Supreme Court.
Actually, the Supreme Court did not. Well,
New
still
Jersey.
agreed to hear the appeal, which unfortunately Governor
And they
Christie
stated by unanimous statement that they would
wouldn't give
most
a
likely
stay.
be.
They wouldn't give a stay.
They wouldn't get a stay. And in the ruling, which was 92 pages, if you read the ruling, it stated very clearly, we know all your arguments, and most likely we will be ruling against.
And we should have
the
still
state.
had the appeal, because this is where we have an oligarchy
Your
of
governor
dictators.
decided to give it up.
That unfortunately he did. But again, it was still, we are being forced by an oligarchy of dictators telling what the people of New
Republican
Jersey.
court?
It's not a Republican court.
Republican court
There
in
may
New
have been
Jersey?
Republicans that appointed some of those choices, but that's not a Republican court. That's a
Majority-
Democrat court.
the majority had
That
them
is a Democrat court.
Okay, let's go back to the primary concern that you were just expressing, that churches have no protection, that they would have to embrace same-sex couples whether they believe in it or not. Is
Correct.
that primarily your concern, or is
Oh
it
no,
more
there's so many
the family?
other concerns. It's when you change the law like this, you also change education. You change so many policies throughout the state, and now you're inculcating what's something that I personally find is morally wrong, is homosexual marriage and activity. As someone who used to be a homosexual, who lived 10 years of my life as an out and open homosexual, as a volunteer for the Human Rights Campaign, and watching 100 of my friends and acquaintances die of AIDS as a registered nurse, I am very concerned about the policy changes we're making, the societal changes we're making, and making homosexual behavior as a norm and acceptable, because what happens is then everything changes. Education, policies throughout, and then everyone is affected, whether you want to be affected by it or not.
Well,
it's a gross imposition.
Well, I don't want to talk about your personal life, and you do have my heart, and I do sympathize with you. I have to disagree with you on the legality in many ways. Number one, the U.S. Supreme Court, which has ruled on these issues, which ruled recently, is a Republican court. Everyone knows that. So that is a Republican court. Number two, the religious angle you throw in, I'm sorry to say, is absolutely wrong and a red herring. Perfect example of that.
It's not a red herring.
Let me finish my
But
point.
it's not a red herring.
I'm about to show you how it is a red herring.
Sure, let's
let
do
me
that.
finish?
Let's
Sure.
get to it. Make the red herring point.
Yeah. For instance, at this point right now, if you have a religious belief, you don't have to have a same-sex wedding in your church. Same example would be in the Catholic Church right now, they don't marry Christians or Catholics and Jews. And the state accepts that. Same thing would happen under this rule. It's a red herring.
No, it's not a red herring, because the problem is it's not just what happens inside the church walls or whether the pastor is going to be forced to do these kind of ceremonies. It's whether the church, if it rents out its fellowship hall or another building, whether or not it would be subject to holding same-sex ceremonies
That's a
in the
great
church.
point, and I'm glad you brought that
Because
up.
the property rights are being raped from these organizations. We've seen it happen all over the country, New Mexico, Illinois, where Christian businesses, Christian operators, and church property has been used and been forced to be used by the courts. And this is where we are losing our freedoms and our right of self-determination as an organization and as people of faith.
If it's church property and it's being used solely for the church and the congregation, sure, it should have the protection of the church rights. But if it takes tax dollars and uses my money to fund it, my people, just like your people, should be allowed to rent that space.
Let me ask you this. Here's a question for you. So is it when a homosexual couple knows that this is a church-owned
Let's
property?
gay couple. Please be
No, I'm giving you the clinical term.
gay couple.
That's the scientific
Well,
clinical
sorry,
term.
I'm gay, not homosexual.
When a
Do you
homosexual,
know the difference?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'll
Yeah, gay
you're
is a political construct.
Okay, you're bisexual, correct?
No, I'm an ex-gay.
No, you're bisexual.
I'm an ex-gay.
Well,
I'm an
if you're going
ex-gay.
to call me a homosexual, I'm going
A
to call you bisexual.
homosexual
Okay,
is
Mr.
the
Bisexual.
clinical term for the activity. Gay is the political term.
Okay, I would like
No,
to again
wrong.
I would like to focus the debate on elaborating why you feel it would be harmful to children if marriage between two people of the same sex, can we agree on that, is allowed. Why does that potentially harm the family unit?
You change the textbooks. You change the policy of the education in the schoolrooms, which is happening already. You are changing, and teachers are losing their rights to express their opinions and their viewpoints. Now, if you're a homosexual teacher, you can express that openly without fear of repercussions. But if you're a Christian or someone who doesn't agree with that, then you do get punished. And the case is Vicky Knox.
Okay, tell me why the family will not be negatively impacted when people of the same sex marry.
Really easy to do. In every single court case across the country, in every case where same-sex marriage has been before a court case, every single study has shown that there is no change. But something even more important than that, aside from the studies, every single scientific study,
Every single one.
every single one,
Every
and every
single
single
one.
court is
What a
Along with the
blanket
polls from
statement.
earlier today.
Such a blanket statement.
All right.
Yeah.
I have
Could
to
be
take
one
a break.
that
I'm gonna break it here. We're gonna come back to you two in just a moment, but first, we're gonna ask our viewers to be part of the conversation. We'd like to know what you think. Do you support or oppose gay marriage, or whatever you call it? Tell me what your opinion is. If you do oppose it, I'd like to know what your biggest objection is. And we'd like to know from those who support it if you think it's now time for it to be legal everywhere, or up to individual states. If you want to join in, you can email me directly at lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also find us on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Lynn Doyle, at Lynn Doyle TV. When we come back, we're going to meet a couple who recently married under the new law to hear why they want the same rights as straight couples. Stay with us for their story and more debate. Welcome back to It's Your Call, everyone. I'm Lynn Doyle. Our topic today is same-sex marriage. We'd like to know what you think about this because now 14 states across the country have adopted it. 11 more are considered those who may be adopting it soon in the nearby future. And we'd like to know if you think that this is a growing trend and why or why not you would support it or oppose it. You can email me directly at lynn@lynndoyle.net. I'd like you to meet James Donio and Larry Exler Donio, who were married as soon as that law went into effect in New Jersey. They have been a couple for 23 years. They've had a commitment ceremony, a civil union ceremony, but it was marriage that they really wanted. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you.
And let me offer my congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Even though you've been a couple for more than 2 decades, it was very important for you to be married. Why?
I mean, for a lot of reasons, emotional reasons as well as practical and legal reasons. As you said, we had a commitment ceremony that was emotional, that brought no legal benefits with it. We had a civil union where we got some legal benefits and kind of reaffirmed how we felt about each other emotionally. And now being able to be legally married in everyone's eyes that love us and support us is very important to us, but it's also important that now we have the benefits that come along with that.
So it's not just that your friends and family and loved ones acknowledge that you are a couple, but more so that the legal system recognizes it in case there's a medical problem, a legal issue, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yes.
feel protected. And
Yeah, some people may argue that we had that with the civil union, but if I walk into a hospital with him tomorrow and he's injured, and I say to them, I'm his husband, they want to see papers. They want proof that I'm able to answer for him. In a legal marriage, once I say I'm his husband, there's no questions. I have the right to say what needs to be done immediately without any second guessing.
And yet it's not recognized in all 50 states.
That's true.
So does that present certain challenges if you're traveling, for example, and you're in a state that does not acknowledge same-sex marriage? What happens?
yeah, I mean, we've been in that position, having been together for a long time. We've been on road trips, and
Yeah.
you know, we take the papers with us. I mean, it's something that you know, when you're doing your checklist, those are things that you think about doing, and it's important because I don't want to find myself in that situation. I want to be able to be right there and be accorded that respect that if something happens to Larry, I'm the person that should be consulted.
And you mentioned that you want to have that right. A lot of people who are opposed to changing the traditional marriage laws will say, well, you are protected under existing laws, that you could have a power of attorney that you keep with you, and should you ever need to make a life-changing decision, you're protected. So why do you need the marriage ceremony? I mean, that's what opponents will say. They
mean,
will
it's-
argue you don't need to be
That's
married.
that's the sort of clinical, legal, way of looking at it. But there's a very much an emotional validation to being married, to being able to say, husband. To look at it in the past, we would have said, oh, partner or spouse. We were very careful, even though other friends of ours would use the term husband. We
Husband,
didn't really
yeah.
use it until we were married last Friday.
I said congratulations at the beginning of our segment, and yet not everyone that you encounter would say congratulations. How difficult is that for you to accept?
For me, it's not difficult at all because I've accepted myself a long time ago. I've accepted that I love this man, and someone else's opinion really has no merit for me. I'm living my life as a productive, happy, loving person.
But you hear opponents say that you are having a negative impact on families, on young children. It's changing the education system. It's infringing on other people's rights. How do you respond to those very real concerns from that venue?
I mean, we grew up with this. We grew up with, being gay and having to, fight for ourselves and assert ourselves and be in fear at times because of people, looking at us a certain way or treating us a certain way. So, as time goes on and as you mature and get older and we've gotten into the relationship that we have, you reach a point in your life where that's not as much of a worry or a concern for you. You're proud of what you have done. I mean, we've raised 2 children. Larry had 2 sons from a previous marriage that I helped to raise. So, I think that we understand the impact on children. We understand what it is to bring children up in a loving environment, in a supportive environment. As far as we're concerned, that doesn't matter whether it's 2 women or 2 men or a man and a woman. It's about love and support.
We would like to invite our viewers to be part of the conversation. So if you'd like to join in with your thoughts on this, you can email me directly. I'm at lynn@lynndoyle.net. And we also do forward your comments or questions to any of our guests. And we're going to continue our debate in our next segment. So if you want to join in on that, we'd like to hear from you as well. This has been a debate ever since I started doing this show 17 years ago. And if I were doing it 17 years from now, heaven help us all, I wonder if we will still be debating the same argument, the same merits. Do you see the nation changing and becoming more accepting, more open? Or do you think that there's always going to be a certain component of our country that is never going to accept you as a couple?
I agree with you that the debate probably would continue. I would hope that it's not for 17 years. But even after 17 years, and even if every state and if there's a federal law passed, even if that all happens, there will still be people who have a different point of view, and that's okay with me. I'm okay with that. I just want to have the rights that we have, but I respect the fact that people will disagree with it probably forever, but that's okay.
Okay, well, we certainly appreciate you sharing your story with us. It kind of gives us a different perspective when you can put faces on a situation. So thank you for being willing to do that and going public with your story. Now that we have heard this personal story, we'd like to give you an opportunity to weigh in, and we're going to go back and get some final thoughts from those who were debating this issue before. So if you'd like to join in at any time, remember, email me at lynn@lynndoyle.net. We'll be right back. Welcome back again, everyone. I'm Lynn Doyle. This is It's Your Call. Our topic is same-sex marriage. We're giving you an opportunity now that you've heard a personal story and our earlier debate to weigh in and tell us what you think. You can do that by following me on Facebook or Twitter. I'm at Lynn Doyle TV. You can also find us here at Comcast at lynn@lynndoyle.net. I'm going to return to our debate with Mark Siegel, who is the publisher of the Philadelphia Gay News and is the nation's most award-winning commentator in the LGBT media. He supports gay marriage. And Gregory Quinlan is the Director of Government Affairs for New Jersey Family First. That's a family advocacy organization. He opposes gay marriage. And there's been a lot of discussion here about what we're going to call it. I'm calling it same-sex marriage, people of the same sex who want to get married. What do you think about it, and why do you feel that way? Greg, now that you've heard a personal story and you can put two names and two faces on the issue, does it at all sway you that individuals deserve the right to be able to enjoy marriage, to be committed to each other,
Well, individuals
to
do
enjoy
deserve that
legal
right. If they're
protections?
heterosexual. As far as the legal protections go, again, we talked about it. I heard that was the legal or the clinical aspect of that. As a nurse, when my father passed away, I was the medical power of attorney. And it did not matter that I was his eldest son. It didn't matter that I was the nurse in the family. It mattered that his signature and my signature were on that medical power of attorney. That's all that mattered. It didn't matter. It could have been somebody that my father knew or worked with. It could have been another family member. It just mattered that those signatures were on the paper. So some of the arguments we hear aren't exactly factual. They're not exactly true. And I do want to bring up, too, from the previous segment, the Mark Regeneris study, the sociological study that showed that children do not fare well in same-sex households, homosexual households, is there. It's very recent, and it was just recently affirmed by a college professor in Canada, of all places, where they do have homosexual marriage.
Any comment on the fact that children who are raised in same-sex households are negatively impacted?
I said all these studies that were independently funded. That was funded by the Family Practices Council in...
No, it was not fair. That is absolutely false. That was funded by the university. It was not funded by the...
What university?
But see,
It was in
university?
Texas. It was
I don't
in
think
Texas.
people care who funded it. I think they want to know about the accusation or the argument that
But it was
kids
independently
suffer.
verified.
All right, you have this one study.
Well, you two are
There
never going to
Well, I
agree
don't
on
have
that.
time. I don't have time to give all the studies.
Right.
And you're
You're
not
the one that
going
made
to
the blanket
agree no
statement.
matter what. Just tell me how kids are not impacted.
No major study that's independent has found any difference. On top of that,
Again, there's
no
those blanket statements
let
with
me-
no validation.
Let me finish. No court in any state in Pennsylvania thus far has found any of the studies that
No,
you
we're talking about
talked
New
about,
Jersey.
including New Jersey. By the way, and you mentioned New Jersey earlier, the legislature, you said, oh, the court system was the one who did this. No. So far, number one, we see in the polls in New Jersey, again, everyone showing these. Let me finish.
Everyone.
Let me finish.
Everyone.
Every poll.
Every
Yeah.
poll, all
You
those
guys are
wonderful
wasting time.
independent
There's less
polls.
than
You're
3
right.
minutes. So if you
Also,
want
the
to argue about
legislature,
polls,
the
argue about
legislature, both
polls.
the House and Senate, passed the bill, and now the courts.
And the governor vetoed
Right.
it,
And then he said, okay, I'm not going to
passed by a very
appeal it.
narrow margin, and they're still going to try to override the veto.
If every poll
Right.
indicated
To
that
make it legal.
1,000% of Americans supported gay marriage, would you accept it and recognize it, even if you particularly don't believe in it, you personally and your organization?
Well, the question you're asking is, it got some nuances there. Do I personally accept it? No.
Okay.
No.
But if it is recognized,
That would
Will it
depend
be
on its
respected?
interference or its invasion into, one, my house of worship, two, my ability to conduct my life independently as I see fit. And those are the issues that remain in flux, but we've already seen the ramifications in other states. People's freedoms are being abridged.
and of course, as I said earlier, this is a discussion that we are going to continue to have, so I appreciate you being part of it this time. I hope you'll
Thank
come
you.
back and join us again. And Mark, where do you see us going from here? Do you think those 11 states that are battleground states are going to soon adopt it?
I will guarantee you, as I did the last time I was here, I said New Jersey would have marriage by the end of the year, and we do. I will guarantee you that we will have it in Hawaii and in Illinois by the end of the year. Therefore, that will make 16 plus DC. And in 17 years, as you said over there, except for places like Alabama and Mississippi, there will be marriage.
Okay, I'm going to invite you to be back as well. And as always, we invite you to be part of the conversation. So please email me at lynn@lynndoyle.net. We'll see you the next time.